Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Aldas, and in today's video, I'm going to be continuing my rise and fall of Ferrari in Formula 1. Now in this episode, we are going to be looking at the Michael Schumacher era of Ferrari and one of the most dominant periods in Formula 1 history. Now guys, if you have not checked out the first parts, don't forget to go and watch those first. They'll be either in the description or linked in the top right in a playlist. So yeah, go check them out. But nevertheless guys, if you do enjoy the content on this channel and want to support me, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias, Instagram and Twitter will be above. But yeah guys, let's get into it. After Ferrari's long drought without any drivers or constructors championships, the arrival of Michael Schumacher for the 1996 season was a significant change for them. At the very least, he was now a two-time back-to-back world champion with Benetton in the previous 2 years, but even back then, I'm not sure anyone would have been able to guess what Schumacher would go on to achieve in his time with Ferrari. The decision to go to Ferrari was not one that Schumacher could let slip by his fingers. The temptation of going to Maranello was just too great, and even now in the modern day we've seen that temptation, that Maranello magic, just be a bit too much for some drivers, and Schumacher, it was exactly the same. But he knew he wasn't going into a fully functioning team or a good car. Schumacher's move to Ferrari was announced in the summer of 1995. He had a good relationship with Jean Todt, who was the team principal, and signed a 2-year deal worth £39 million. But again, Schumacher had no illusions. He knew this once great team was struggling and was not performing to its true potential. On signing with the team, he said that he wanted a challenge and to develop the team up to a certain standard, and then went on to predict that he would achieve wins in his first season and championships in his second. Now, if he wanted instant success, Williams could have offered him that, or even Mercedes, who he had strong ties with from his sports car racing, who had now begun to form a strong partnership with McLaren. Schumacher knew after his success at Benetton, Ferrari would be a gamble. Schumacher began the rebuilding years at Ferrari with Jean Todt and teammate Eddie Irvine, although from the very beginning there was no question about who was Ferrari's #1 driver. Schumacher immediately showed his class, and in his first test for the team in Estoril in Ferrari's 1995 car, he was a second quicker than Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi. Despite Schumacher showing his amazing talent, the 1996 season was a reality check for Ferrari and Schumacher. The Ferrari F310 designed by John Bernard for that season was a horrible car. It was big and cumbersome for a start, partly due to Ferrari's wrong interpretation of the new safety rules. I mean, just looking at pictures of it compared to the Williams will show you that. And on top of that, it was slow, often over a second off the pace in some qualifying sessions, and hideously unreliable as well, needing a gearbox redesign after the first race. So yeah, warning signs for Schumacher already. However, Schumi, with his incredible ability, squeezed absolutely everything out of that dog of a car, winning 3 races, which included the 1996 Spanish Grand Prix, widely regarded as one of the best ever displays of wet weather driving in Formula 1 history. And on top of that, 8 podiums and an eventual 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. It's hard to truly explain what miracles Schumacher did in that 1996 car, but in short, the designer was fired at the end of the season. However, now began the true rebuilding of Ferrari and the assembly of what would be known as the Ferrari Dream Team. In late 1996, Schumacher recruited his championship-winning technical director, Ross Brawn, and lead car designer, Rory Byrne, from Benetton. All 4 men, Michael Schumacher, Jean Todt, Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne, would now combine and catapult Ferrari into the record books. With the Dream Team now assembled, the 1997 season would be a breath of fresh air. The team completely overhauled the car and produced the updated Ferrari 310B. Although similar in name, the car was now unrecognisable compared to the 96 car, and in it, Schumacher would launch his first real Ferrari Championship challenge. In the 1997 season, Schumacher managed to take the title against Jacques Villeneuve in a superior Williams down to a decider in Jerez. Now, Schumacher already throughout the 90s and further into his career had a reputation as being often a questionable driver with some of his racing. His will to win was unmatched. He would literally do anything to win, but sometimes on track, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call his driving dangerous. Him crashing Damon Hill off in Adelaide 94 to win his first world title had already left a lot of people calling him a cheat and not popular amongst the drivers. In the 1997 title showdown at Jerez, Schumacher's will to win, coupled with his dirty tricks, once again was centre stage. Leading the Grand Prix ahead of title rival Villeneuve, it looked like Schumacher was on for the win, but as Villeneuve dived down the inside to overtake, Michael blatantly turned early into the Williams, trying to damage it out of the race. Ironically, it didn't work out and it was Michael himself who ended up beached in the gravel from that move, with Villeneuve sustaining minimal damage and able to carry on to take the 1997 World Championship. Michael's actions would not go unpunished, however. He subsequently was disqualified from the championship for a deliberate crash, but his points still counted towards the Constructors' Championship. Now, the next 2 years would show one of Formula One's greatest rivalries between Michael Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen. For the start of the 1998 season, Rory Byrne was finally able to create a car that was entirely his, the F300. It was a complete redesign of aerodynamics, gearbox, suspension, and engine electronics, and it goes without saying entirely based around Schumacher as well, as he directly helped to develop it. His power within the team was growing as Ferrari got stronger, but now the Dream Team era had finally begun. Now, Michael and Ferrari had just failed to clinch the 1998 World Championship to Mika Hakkinen in his McLaren Mercedes. However, Ferrari were very strong throughout the season, with Schumacher taking 6 wins and 3 pole positions, and did manage to take it to a title decider in Suzuka. 1999, however, would prove a frustrating year for the team as they let yet another championship slip past their fingers to Mika. However, car performance once again was superb and reliability was good as well. However, with Schumacher breaking his leg at the 1999 British Grand Prix, it was down to his teammate Eddie Irvine to try and steal it away from the McLarens. To his credit, Irvine did a decent job for the rest of the season, and even going into the final race, had the lead in the points. But it would be in vain, as McLaren would once again go on to win the 1999 Drivers' Championship with Hakkinen. However, Ferrari, thanks to Irvine's late season charge, did win their first Constructors' Championship since 1983. However, the Drivers' Championship still eluded them. Unsurprisingly, Ferrari were never too far away from controversy, and 1999 was no different. There were rumours that Schumacher, after his broken leg, didn't even want to return for that season because he would now have to help his teammate win the title, and Schumacher could not let Irvine be the one to bring the driver's title back to Maranello. Now, on top of all of that, when Schumacher did eventually return, there was a case in the Malaysian Grand Prix in which Ferrari had been found to have illegal barge boards, something that is usually a slam dunk disqualification for that race, but was found to be ridiculously overturned in Ferrari's favour by the FIA. Out of nowhere, the FIA explained that a tolerance would be given to them, making it legal, even though no team knew about such thing and it wasn't in the regulations. Now, unsurprisingly, this would not be the first or the last time that Ferrari would get obvious special treatment by the FIA, and thus the fans created a joke, renaming the FIA to Ferrari International Assistance. Now, despite Ferrari finally returning to the top and consistently being able to fight for the title, losing the title in the final race 3 years in a row was frustrating the president of Ferrari, Luca de Montezemolo, and questions were even beginning to be asked about whether or not Jean Todt was the right man to bring everything together. However, all those critics would now be silenced. With the beginning of the new millennium, Ferrari would reign supreme. They had replaced Eddie Irvine with Rubens Barrichello, and their number one driver Michael Schumacher, now untroubled with the newly redesigned Ferrari F1 2000. Finally, in the 2000 season, Ferrari and Michael Schumacher would win their first driver's title since Jody Scheckter did in 1979. That is a wait of 21 long years. And quite poetically actually, because it happened in Suzuka of all places, where they had lost in the previous 2 years. In that season, Schumacher managed to achieve 9 race wins, 9 pole positions, and 12 podiums. Ferrari had every single piece of the jigsaw exactly where they needed it, and would win both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships 5 years in a row from 2000 to 2004. Formula 1 had never seen domination like it, but at the hands of Schumacher, Ferrari broke almost every single record in the history books. Over the course of 5 years, they won just over 70% of the races. Schumacher himself also now became, statistically, the greatest Formula 1 driver ever, with a record 7 world titles, beating Juan Manuel Fangio's 5. The records did not end there for Schumacher and Ferrari. Schumacher had the most pole positions, he had obviously the most wins, he had the most wins in a single season, he had the most consecutive wins in a season, he had the most wins at a single track, the highest number of podiums, and a whole host of other records that would just take too long for me to name. I mean, truly an extraordinary time in Formula 1. But of course, once again, where there's Ferrari, there's controversy, and as always, it was just a step away for Ferrari and Schumacher. Schumacher's status as Ferrari's number one was never questioned. I mean, Rubens Barrichello, he knew his place in the team, and everyone in the paddock and everyone across the world that watched Formula 1 knew exactly who the number one was and knew exactly where Barrichello belonged in that team. And that was fully on display in the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix when Rubens Barrichello was told to let Schumacher through to win the race. Barrichello begrudgingly accepted and let Schumacher through just meters before the finish line on the final lap. The world of Formula 1 was quite frankly disgusted. There was booing on the podium, and even Schumacher was absolutely embarrassed by the decision. As a result, team orders were banned from then. Nevertheless, Ferrari had achieved something that no one could have ever imagined. It was a combination of the Ferrari dream team of Michael Schumacher, Jean Todt, Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne, as well as the incredible resources at Maranello that allowed them to have this success, coupled with the fact that their tyre supplier, Bridgestone, was building tyres specifically for Ferrari, and the endless amount of testing Schumacher did at Fiorano, because back in those days, you could do as much testing as you want to improve the car for him. I mean, the results in retrospect and looking at the big picture of what we know happened almost don't really seem that surprising, but it's still phenomenal to this day what they managed to do. Of course, nothing lasts forever, and with the regulations being changed to hinder Ferrari, and with the arrival of Fernando Alonso and the rise of Renault, Schumacher's Ferrari era and his career had come to an end for now. Schumacher continued to fight with Alonso in 2005 and 2006, but coming to the end of his career, both he and Ferrari had now run out of steam. Even so, the old Michael still had some of his old dirty tricks left, which included crashing on purpose in qualifying at Monaco in 2006 to prevent Alonso from getting pole position, something that by now was no surprise to the drivers or the fans. Either way, at the end of 2006, the dream team that had led Ferrari to victory had started to dissipate. Schumacher had announced his retirement, the strategy genius Ross Brawn had also announced he would be leaving Ferrari in 2006, and the design guru Rory Byrne had also begun to step further and further back, being eventually replaced with Aldo Costa. The Dream Team's era of domination had come to an end, but for Ferrari, life after Schumacher would still prove to be successful, if also difficult to match. But ending the video, what last and honest words do I have about Michael Schumacher? Well, he definitely had his flaws. As a person and a driver, he was arrogant and often couldn't even stand seeing his teammates succeed if he didn't have the glory for himself. Many drivers hated him for his dirty driving, and for the fans, he could either do no wrong in your eyes, or for many, he was easier to admire than to love, labelled by many as a cheat. However, speaking even more honestly from my point of view, I admire Michael Schumacher so much. He was just a different breed in Formula 1. His will to win and his ability to go above and beyond the limits is what made him one of the greatest of them all. And as far as his arrogance, every driver in Formula 1 history is arrogant, but the most arrogant driver of them all is also a 7-time world champion. Anyway guys, there you go. That is part 4 of my rise and fall of Ferrari in Formula 1. Now guys, don't forget to let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Schumacher from this era and Ferrari from this era? And more importantly, how did you guys feel about Michael Schumacher? Did you like him? Did you hate him? Let me know in the comments below. There is usually always very strong opinions when it comes to Michael Schumacher. But guys, putting everything aside, I do also want to say one really quick thing, and that is keep fighting Michael. It is just so sad to know that whilst he is still with us, we don't see him in the paddock anymore, and we don't see his amazing character, because he was a really interesting guy, and you know, definitely funny as well. I mean, I really just hope that he is able to see from wherever he is the work that he did in Mercedes in those early days and what it's transformed to. I mean, the help of Michael and Nico in those early days, I'm not sure if Mercedes would be able to be where they are today. So the work that he did, I just want to say, you know, it's amazing what it's sort of become. And yeah, just keep fighting Michael. I really hope to see you back in Formula 1 one day soon. Anyway guys, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And also guys, keep an eye out in the next week and a half for the future and final episode of the rise and fall of Ferrari in Formula 1. Anyway guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.